What up, everybody? It's your boy Prince here, and you're probably wondering why I am shirtless. No, I'm not naked. I'm just shirtless. I'm not naked. See, just shirtless. This is it. Now, if you ever live in the Bahamas, you would know it's hot. That's number one, and number two, in this room makes it extra hot. So yeah, that's why my shirt is off. Today's video is gonna be about systemic racism. Myth, or is it true? Well, clearly I'm black, so I kind of lean towards the truth, but we're going to look at the facts. It shows that white privilege does exist, and black people do tend to have it harder. Now, of course, some of those things are black people's fault, not to mention black on black violence, just lazy black people in general, keeping other blacks down. I understand that, and that does happen, that is true. But that's within the race. That has nothing to do with race versus race. People need to understand that systemic racism is the idea that there's a system against black people. Well, not just black people, but because I'm black and because it's normally or usually referred to white versus black, we're gonna do that. I personally don't completely agree with it. I do think that there is a system, but I don't. But it's not like I'm just putting all the blame on white people. It is some of our fault, but that is true. But you can't sit there and deny that there's still an advantage white people have over black people. And as a person, I experience this. But we're gonna explore the facts today, right? First, we're gonna talk about wealth. White people have more money. They live in better neighborhoods than black people, right? That's essentially true. At least even if it isn't true based off my perspective, it is. But yeah, that's normally true. Black people tend to live in a lot of poverty areas. Of course there are black people in middle class areas. Of course there are rich black people, but those are the minority. It is true that whites do control the majority of money within the US. And in fact, that number has actually increased throughout the years. Blacks have been getting less and less money along with the Hispanics, but I don't really like to bring them into this. But I know what you're thinking. Wait. What about the study that shows that Asian households make more money than any other race? Yeah, that is true. Asians, their household income is more, but that's because they're smart with their money. But that doesn't really debunk that white people do control the majority of money. Now, I would like to play the majority rule, not majority rule, but the majority rule. I'm not sure if I explained this in any other video, but this is basically something I made up as you take the majority as into consideration. You don't take it as complete fact, but you should take it in consideration within your argument. So, because not in every case the majority is right. Like, I've seen that many times as I debate in anime groups and stuff like that. But in most cases, the majority tends to be right. So that's why I came up with the majority rule, whereas, okay, it's pretty obvious that white people are the majority in the United States. Therefore, they will control the majority of the money. You see, the majority rules. It's like when Steven Crowder brings up the fact that whites are more likely to be killed than blacks.
You look at the fact that you're actually more likely to be shot as a white young American than a black young American. Statistically, we've talked.
Kind of true, considering that they are the majority. You will find more white people than black people in the United States. That is true. and they will tend to be killed. But for whatever reason. But even if that's true, that shouldn't be an excuse to justify other race killing other races. You know? That shouldn't justify race versus race. You know? It shouldn't justify that. Like, yeah, white people do get killed more, sure, whatever. It, that should not be a thing where, hey, we white people, we get killed more. Shut up. No, no. Oh, some white cops killed you because you're black? Shut up. No, no, no. We shouldn't let that be. Of course, a lot of people tend to bring up black on black violence in like racism conversation, and I always question, what does that have to do with racism? Black on black violence have nothing to do with racism. I'm not advocating black on black violence. I'm not saying that it is I'm not saying that it's not a problem. I'm just saying, in terms of systemic racism and racism in general, that has nothing to do with it. You you're bringing up an irrelevant point just to add on to your argument, or just to deteriorate, or to divert from the actual topic itself. And I notice Ben Shapiro tend to do that a lot, and I just can't. Me personally, I'm a fan of both Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, but of course, I don't agree with doing that. And anybody who actually does that, I bring them to question what that have to do with racism. And let's actually go back to systemic racism in the first place. Ben Shapiro actually says there's no such thing as systemic racism, but there's such a thing as racism. I don't understand that. How could there be racism, but there's no systemic racism? Like, okay, I guess he's trying to say that there's no system, but there's still racism? I guess I'm trying to understand what he's saying. The way I see it is, you can't say there's racism, but there's no systemic racism. There has to be a middle ground there for you to agree that there's some form of systemic racism if racism still exists. Come on, man. But anyway, let's get back to the facts, right? So it makes sense that, okay, white people makes way more than black people, right? Here's another article. This is this is coming from the UCSC, right? Let's read more into this. In 1997, in 1979, black men earned on average about 80% of what white men earn, right? In 2016, it slipped to about 70%, right? Although wages for black males increased, the gain lagged significantly behind that of their white counterparts. The gap also widened for black women, right? And from 1979 to 2016, the wages of black women fell roughly to 95% of what white women earned. This is coming from the United States Department of Labor. This is actually coming from them, right? This is actually coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is actually coming from them. These are the facts. And they can't explain it. They said, it even says it in the title, the unexplainable growing black-white wage gap. They can't explain it. Let's keep reading. The author suggests that unexplained factors could include discrimination, differences in school quality, and differences in opportunity. In 1979, unexplained factors were responsible for the 8% points of the earnings gap for men and 40% of the total earnings gap at that time. By 2016, the share had risen to 13%, nearly half of the earning gap. Right? So they're saying this is unexplainable. They're saying they can't explain why. And I like their approach to it, because they're not saying that, okay, because white people are at fault. They're completely throwing out the whole systemic racism thing. They're throwing that out. They're wondering, this is actually opposed, and this was actually made last year. So this isn't why black people, they don't understand why black people um make less. And this was coming from 1970 to now. And of course, I'm putting the links into the description below so you can actually check it out yourself. They obviously don't know. Now, coming from another article, right? They show the unemployment rate with blacks and whites, right? They show that black men are more likely to be unemployed, also with black women, than a white male and a white female, right? Here's what the article says. Conditional on being in the labor force, the average African American worker, male or female, is more likely to be unemployed. Panels A and B. If you click on the link, you will see the panels. Or maybe I'd put it up in the video. I'm not sure. Depending on how big it is, I'm not sure. And then their white counterparts. Indeed, unemployment rates for black workers are 6%, or 6.4 percentage points higher on average during expansion of those of white workers over our sample. Right? These gaps widen to 6.9% points on average of recession as the inducive of employment and duration of job searches increase more for black Americans than for whites. Right? Panel C and D shows wages earned by black and white women. The lines plot real average hourly earnings, which are usually weekly earnings divided by usually weekly hours worked, etc., etc. So they basically showed that white people are ahead of black people in earnings. Now, most people are going to bring up, hey, well, maybe black people are lazy. Maybe black people just don't like, maybe they're influenced by rap music, everybody just want to, sell drugs and make rap music, play basketball, the stereotypes, but nobody wants to go and actually work, black people think it's too cool to work. That's not necessarily the case. There's actually been no conclusive reason as to why black people has been unemployed more than white people, and why white people earn more. Why? It's not because they're lazy. There's a lot of black people who work 9-to-5 jobs. There's a lot of black people who work the same jobs as white people, right? There's no difference. It's the system. Systemic racism. That's the answer. We're still in the times of racism, but nobody wants to, even though the facts are here, nobody wants to admit it. Now we're just gonna go to little extra points, because those were my main points, but we're gonna go to little extra main points. The war on marijuana, right? It's no secret that black people and white people tend to, get in trouble for marijuana, right? Studies have shown blacks and whites use pot. I don't like to use the word pot. Weed, the same amount as each other, the same rate. That means there's no difference between how much people use weed. This is from ages 18 to 25, of course, but age really don't make much of a difference in this scenario. But here's the catch. Blacks are 4 times as likely, well, it says nearly 4 times, but play on words. Nearly 4 times as likely to get arrested for weed possession. Now, that's amazing to me. That's amazing. You honestly think that there's like why? Why? And since we're on the topic of policemen, it's already shown that African Americans are more likely to be killed by law enforcement. Here's the proof, right? Remember when I said that Steven Crowder was like, white people are more likely to die from police officers, and I agreed to that because of the majority rule. But this says that African Americans, right? This is coming from the CJ, which is the Center of Juvenile and Criminal Justice. It says that African Americans are more likely to be killed than any other race. Any other race. They are more likely to be killed. Of course, there's the age difference there, but they're likely to be killed by any other race. This does not contradict completely what Steven said, because again, we got to go back to the majority rules. Chances, just think about probability. If you got 3 red balls and 7 blue balls in a jar, the chances of you picking up a blue ball is 70%. So, of course, the majority rules, right? But in this case, the fact shows that black Americans are more likely to be killed by law enforcement. Why? Why? Why is that the case? We're not doing anything. I mean, you might argue black on black violence. You might argue that, hey, resisting arrest, it might get you killed. Sure, great. I'm not denying that, but the fact that black people are being killed by white officers, just because they're black, the fact that we are being mistreated because we're black, is really, it's really bad. It's really bad. Now, clearly, I'm address the elephant in the room. Clearly, this article does not say anything about white officers killing black people. It just says law enforcement. Law enforcement can be Asian, blacks, or anything. But I do think there's a correlation between the two. Like, there's been a lot of more race killings, like between white cops killing black cops white cops killing black people because they're black. Here's the thing, I have no problem with cops killing people. Well, of course there's a problem with that, but because they're supposed to be protecting, not killing. But let me make you understand. I have no problem with black people getting killed from cops. I have no problem with that. If the killing is warrant and justified, then yeah, sure. My problem comes where you're being killed because you're black. You're being stopped because you're black. You're being harassed because you're black. These are happening over and over and over again. The fact shows these are happening over and over again. We see countless videos. We see countless stories. It keeps happening. And do you really want to sit there and deny that there's no such thing as a white privilege? There's no such thing as systemic racism? There are. The facts prove it. You guys control the majority of the money. You guys get off scot-free. Y'all can do things that we can't. But yet, we still are the trendsetters. You guys follow everything we do. All the little dances we make up, all the songs we have, you guys follow it. Right? Because we're supposed to be your show puppets, right? That's what we are. That's what black people are, apparently. I'm not saying that's what anybody said. I'm saying it as an observation. That's how it seems. Are we really gonna keep denying it? Do I have to get more facts? Because I can. We could go back and forth all day. It exists. It exists. It exists. I just showed you the study. The Department of Labor, they don't understand where the wage gap come from. Because they're not putting in white privilege. They're not putting the systematic racism in it. It's like when an atheist finds something, or a scientist finds something, they're like, oh, well, where did this come from? Well, it can't be God, so we're just gonna throw that out there. We don't know where it comes from. So that's basically what they're doing. They're throwing out racism, and they're like, wow, I noticed this gap, but I don't know how to explain it. It's race. It's race. That's why. Is there a solution to this? There is. I think the first thing, people really should acknowledge that racism still exists and you do have white privilege. Acknowledge that. You can't do anything about it because you are born white. You can't do anything about it. You can't. I understand that. I can't do anything about me being born black. I can't do that. I can't change it. I'm not asking you to change it. I'm just asking you to recognize that exists. Recognize it. Be aware. Once then, fix it. Fix it. Distribute the money equally between black people and white people. Give black people equal opportunities as white people. Do not judge black people as much as because of how they look or where they come from. because that's clearly what's going on. You could try to deny it, but that's clearly the sources of what's going on. Now, of course, there are going to be people who are gonna. Well, what about colleges? The colleges provide financial aid strictly for black people, strictly for being black. That, I mean, that does help. That does help because clearly black people are more more in poverty than white people. I'm not saying white people aren't in poverty. I'm just saying based on race, white people clearly controls most of the money. That's already been proven. Just recognize these things. I don't really have a big idea on how to fix it. I think that's more of a government thing. But once more people are aware, we could let the government be aware, and they can fix that. That I think that's the solution at least. But being aware, I think that's definitely the first step. That's definitely the first step. Recognizing and admitting that, okay, this exists. This exists. It is real. It's nothing fake. It's nothing fabricated by black people to make an excuse. It's nothing. I understand that black people tend to make excuses. I know a lot of people who are black who make excuses. A bunch of niggas on the block, smoking and, gang banging. They making excuses as to why they can't find a job. But nigga, you gang banging. What the fuck? You ain't trying to find nothing. I understand that people out there like that. But that's not the majority. We are being put down because of the system. You gotta fix that. You gotta be aware of that. It's gotta happen. Anyway, leave a like if you enjoyed this video. And also, come back. You know what? Actually, share this video. Share this video with your friends. Share this video with your friends if they're black, white, Asian. I want to hear your comments on it. I want to hear your theories on it. And of course, you know me by now. I bring facts. So bring your facts too. Bring your facts too. Let's compare notes. When we compare notes, then we could find a decisive. Maybe we could find common ground and agree that okay, boom, okay, boom. So yeah, leave a comment. I really want to read the comments. Leave a comment. And stay tuned. We got more coming for you. Oh wait, before you go, I just wanted to make it clear. I really wanted to make this video outside, or at least in a different scenery than this background, this dirty ass, dirty wall. But there's some complications with that, and I've been holding off on this video for a long time, so I really wanted to hurry up and make it. I mean, of course, I put the facts in there. Of course, I made it with care, but I mean, like, hurry up and record it. Started recording it and actually making the video. My next one will probably be outside or in a different scenery. I promise you that. I just wanted to point that out. Sooner or later, my scenery is gonna change. I'll be moving soon, so it'll be a lot of new videos, new vlogs, experiences. So you could stay in tune for that. Of course, I don't mean to offend anybody. If you're offended, then I don't know what to say. I don't personally give a shit, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Yeah. Hey guys, scratch that thing I said earlier. Remember when I said Steven Crowder believe in the opposite statistic? He doesn't. I made a mistake. I'm sure people are gonna play on the words shot and murdered, but yeah, I just want to make that disclaimer, a quick disclaimer that I made a mistake, and here's the actual proof of that.
Murder rate. If I were an African American transgender, I'd be 30 times more likely to be murdered than I am. So
African American men are much more likely to be murdered than white men too. So a big part of that is
right.
Not necessarily trans.
Race is real, right? And that's
by other black
issue.
people too.
But yeah, that's from the new series that changed my mind. Of course, that link could be in the description as well as the other video. Just wanted to point that out real quick. I'm making this video. I made that video a long time ago. I'm just now uploading it, so yeah, you could probably see the time frame just in case you're confused. Yeah, that's it. Did you enjoy those videos? No? well, something is mentally wrong with you. Why don't you click one of these few videos that are popping on the screen right now, and maybe you'll like those ones. Bye.